Welcome to another episode of Progress Always, where we're here to build the fittest leaders with integrity, courage, and ownership. And I've got the honor and the pleasure to chat with my buddy, Mike Wisecup, Navy SEAL, Naval Academy grad. We met through the Post, which is an organization of athletes turned executive and entrepreneur. And I put my feelers out inside that group because there's so much talent, so much nuance, so much incredible narratives that speak to the transition from athlete to executive. But in our case, it comes in twofold, because a lot of the conversation I'm having out here in the world right now has to do with the similarities between leaving sport and leaving the military, and the parallels of the identity shift are uncanny. So we'll dive into all of that. But first and foremost, man, thank you so much for taking the time and making yourself available this morning.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Proud to join you.
I was telling you before we mic'd up and went live, I went to Air Force prep on my way into the Air Force Academy. You had a stint in D3 before the Naval Academy. And before we compare notes on Air Force versus Navy, tell me about how that came to be for you. How did you leverage that short experience in a civilian institution on your way into the Naval Academy?
Yeah, the reason why I went to the small D3 school, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology out in Indiana, small school, engineering, it was all guys at the time, was because I didn't get into the academies. And when I was in high school, about midway through sophomore, junior year, I saw Top Gun, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to fly. I mean, best recruiting movie ever. And so when I didn't know a lot about the military, and I wasn't in a military place in the middle of Indiana. So I thought you had to go to the Air Force Academy. So I applied to the Air Force Academy, and my grades sucked. I didn't have anything. I swam and I played soccer and I did stuff, but like I look back in that, I was not a competitive applicant. But the process of going through the application, all these things that I had checked, like, man, I haven't done anything. Like, I can't check any of these boxes, top 10%, valedictorian, all these different things, like volunteer hours. Like, man, what have I been doing? And so I didn't get in, obviously, but I thought, what do I need to do to fill out that application next year and be a stronger applicant? So I joined Air Force ROTC. I was in the Arnold Air Society. I was drilling with the Air Force cadets. I wasn't getting any money for it, like no scholarship, but I was in Air Force ROTC. I joined every club and joined every sport that would take me. And at the school, since it was a very smart school, a lot of engineers, there wasn't a lot of great athletes. And so I was able to get on a lot of teams that I probably wouldn't have been able to otherwise. Joined a fraternity, where I had a lot of mentorship, and I really found what it meant to be a brother, and like that built a lot of core skills in me that that I've used throughout my life. And so this Division III experience gave me a chance to do a ton of things. And then I reapplied, and in that process I decided to reapply to all of the service academies, and still never got into Air Force Academy. It was never good enough. They didn't want me. But I got into Navy and thought, well, I can fly at Navy, and so I did that. Now, as some people know, you got to do 4 years at the service academies. You don't get to like skip a year just because you did. But so my grades were mediocre again at that Division III school. And I thought, man, the academies are so tough. Everything's hard. I'm just going to take all the classes over again. So I started square one again, my freshman year at the academy. Thank God I did. Redoing, calculus and differential equations and chemistry 101 things, doing them again, I did a lot better. And so I was able to get a good foundation set up. But I had a blast. I was a social chairman of my fraternity. I had all kinds of stuff. I mean, if I had not gotten into the academy, I don't know if I would have graduated. And so when I did get to the academy, and they turn off all your social interaction, totally, like you can't, you become like so closed off. I was like, I'm good. Like, I've been partying for the last year. I don't need any of that. And a year older, a little bit more mature kind of helps. And I just had a different perspective going into the academy and kind of how I approached it.
Mm-hmm. So you want to fly, and then you end up a SEAL. How'd that work out?
Yeah. So I was a swimmer at that's what I really kind of grew up doing, was being a swimmer in high school, going to college swimming. That opened up a lot of doors for me. I swam at the Naval Academy, and when I was there, the summers you do a couple blocks of mandatory training, like you go down to Quantico and train with the Marines, all in an idea that each summer you progress and you learn different aspects of the Navy, see what you like. So that way, when you graduate, you're more informed about what you want to do professionally, whether you want to be a Marine or a surface warfare officer or a pilot or submariner. And one of my upperclassmen said, "Hey, you're a great swimmer. You should think about going to dive school for one of those blocks of training."
Shit. Okay.
That's great. So they have dive screener. It was miserable, like Thursday to Sunday and a long weekend, you give up your like vacation, and all of the upperclassmen just, they don't haze you, but like they run you down. I mean, you're wet and sandy, push-ups, people are dropping out left and right. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? I just kept doing it, because that's what swimmers do. We like to do mundane, boring things for long periods of time. And so, I just figured it was like doing laps again. And I kept going. And so I got into dive school, but then that summer, the dive school didn't have any billets. So I was like, well, why'd I do all that stuff? And there was a Marine captain on the yard that scheduled these things, and said, hey, you did really well on the screener for dive school. We'll open up a billet for you to go to airborne school. So I went down to Fort Benning, Georgia as a midshipman.
Yeah.
And I went to airborne school. And so at the time, this is mid-90s, there was no like SEAL jump school like they have now. So all the SEALs that were graduating from BUDS would come out there and they'd go through jump school on their way to earning their trident. So they put all the Navy guys together. And so I got lumped in with all these SEALs, and they were the coolest guys I had ever met. I mean, just solid, nothing flushed them. They were just rock stars, but they were incredibly kind. Like they treated us as midshipmen like people. They weren't above anything. They were always messing around with the Army instructors when we'd have to drop down to do 10 push-ups. They'd just keep going until the instructors told them stop doing push-ups. And I was like, man, these guys are awesome. And at that moment, I was like, I want to be around people like this. Like I want to be surrounded by men like this. Oh,
is that
and they have a great mission too. That's awesome. But it was the men that I met that actually made the decision for me.
I'm gonna pause you really quick, because I played football at the academy, and moving through that prep school experience, and obviously the fraternity that is athletics in that container is just how I describe it. We became men together.
Yep.
And there's the guys that I played with at the academy, and then there's the guys that I deployed with in the Marines. And those two fraternities, man, we are inseparable. Now, that short experience before INDOC and going to BUDS and stuff like that small sample size that you had that summer at the Naval Academy with those SEALs at airborne school, how different was that from any of the relationships that you had fostered at the academy?
Yeah, that's a good one, because the academy relationships, transpired over a 4-year period. Whereas this was a 3-week school, and yet the intensity of the training and kind of the breaking it down to like everyone's got to suffer together. I mean, it's like a time accelerator. You skip through so much stuff. Like when you go through adversity with someone, even if it's just one event, one time, there's a bond, I think, that forms that can't be replicated anywhere else. Now, sometimes that adversity takes years, maybe it's a semester, maybe it's time, but the more intense the adversity, I think the more that connection, that bond is. I'm guessing that when there's crises around the nation and different circumstances and issues, that people have never met each other, but there's that event where they're on the same plane together and something happens. They're bonded in a way that can't be replicated. And so I think that the bonds I made with those guys just during that 3-week, it certainly opened my eyes to the caliber of individuals, but also like I formed some good friendships there. I actually maintained some of those friendships.
Yeah.
And when I went through BUDS, Some of them were my instructors, which was not good, not good at all. And like, hey, I remember you. Were you at airborne school? Like, oh no, that was
immediately skylined off the jump. Oh man!
But then I went off to war with them too.
Yeah,
and and so there was trust already there. There was something that we already had together that established the working relationship, the professionals, and then the brotherhood that kind of follows.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, because this is what's interesting culturally from an inter-service perspective. The Marine Corps, as far as the big green machine is concerned, and the way we develop officers, is unique in that we have the basic school. That first 6 months as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, that's where everybody starts. It's not like the Air Force, where you graduate from the academy and you're out there in the active service. And it really puts everybody at square one on the same playing field. And you realize that regardless of your pedigree, your commissioning source, OCS, ROTC, or the academy, or being prior enlisted, nobody knows shit about shit. And we're all starting from square one. Yeah. How does that dynamic exist when you move through the SEAL process as opposed to joining the big blue machine, the Navy?
Yeah, in fact, it's at the core of what makes SEAL platoons so effective. And let me talk you through it.
Yeah.
So think you join a SEAL platoon, all right? You're a brand new guy. And you go to SEAL Team 5 and you check in, and this is 2010. This team just comes off deployment from Mosul, Iraq. And you're joining a platoon of 16 guys that all have 6 months of combat experience. Like, just 2 weeks ago, they were kicking down doors.
Right.
And all you've done is graduate from BUD/S. Okay. And if you join them in stride, trying to run as fast as them, you are a liability. You're a weakness in the team. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to drop around in the kill house, which could have catastrophic effects to your teammates or others. And so what we do is, it doesn't matter how much combat experience you have. When that platoon starts up anew, everyone starts at zero again. Because there are guys that are just brand new, and there's guys with a lot of experience, but you start your training without shooting, walking, using stick guns, talking through it. The mantra is crawl, walk, run. So you crawl as a platoon through each evolution and each phase of training, and then you walk, and then you run. And by the time you get to that run phase, you're a cohesive team and you're really solid. But you can only do that by coming through it together. You can't just parachute into it as a brand new guy, because you're going to be at a disadvantage. And so the way we train and develop SEAL platoons is based off of that mantra, which is everyone starts together. And that's how we started our training too. All the officers and enlisted, we all go through BUD/S together. We train together. We go develop unique skills afterwards, whether you're a sniper, or a comms guy, or as an officer, you go learn how to do PowerPoint slides and sit behind a chair, really effectively.
So that part's not different, huh?
and use knife hands. And so, but that's your job in the team. Just like everyone's got a role. The officer's role isn't be a sniper. As soon as the officer does that, they see is the scope. They lose all other situational awareness, and their job's managing and see the big picture. So everyone's got a role, and it just happens to be the officer's role needs to know how to get missions approved, how to execute them, how to come up with contingencies and do all that other kind of, stuff. And then let the guys, kick the doors down and do the mission, and do what they're trained to do. So, but it is fundamental. We all start at square one and we all work our way through together. And
Mm-hmm.
to some degree, I think a lot of operational units do that, and I think the more combat operational the unit is, probably the more you have to do that.
Sure.
My guess is that Marine, companies and platoons, infantry companies that are going to go out the door, they're not have a brand new guy show up on deployment in the middle of like combat operations in Fallujah. These guys have been training together cohesively. They know each other. They know each other's tells, and because of that, they can execute at a very high level where the stakes are, pretty extreme.
Yeah. Now, I'm of the 9/11 generation in that it was my senior year of high school. Now, never mind the fact that both my parents are Air Force and that technically, me and my big brother are legacy service members. I think we're fourth or fifth generation in the uniform. But that was a large reason a lot of us in my generation joined up. And for somebody that came in relative peacetime, never mind the all the components that come with special operations, and then 9/11 kicks off. What was that like for you guys to transition from a peacetime special component mentality to, oh fuck, like we're all in the shit now?
It was awesome.
I love that shit so much.
I think about it. A lot of athletes are probably watching this. Can you imagine only ever practicing all the time, never getting to play a game, like not even like sitting on the bench watching your teammates play, but like your team never playing a game, just practicing, rep, year after year after year. When 9/11 happened, it was game on. It was, we were playing games now. They were real games. And and it was everything I wanted. It was everything I'd trained for. It was everything I was naively as a young, SEAL operator, it was everything I wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly proud of it, but it has its consequences as well, and I don't say this, kind of lightly when I say, so excited it's everything I wanted. There's consequences to these things. There's baggage that comes, for different guys, it affects you in different ways and different things. But I am professionally fulfilled at this point in my life because of that experience.
Yeah. Now, is there a hierarchy of teams in that? Like SEAL Team 6 is the one that always gets mentioned everywhere all the time. And there's obviously, if that's number 6, there's 5 more and maybe a couple more beyond that. Is that just because of the mission that they fulfilled and, the Michael Murphys of the world that makes that team, that gives it its celebrity? Or do these teams have specific missions that they fulfill as specialties that they fulfill inside the mission as well? How's that work?
Yeah. Pre 9/11, the teams were aligned geographically. And so a lot of the interest of where people went and the types of operations they conducted were really based off of the team they joined. And so if you were at SEAL Team 1, you were dealing with jungles in Southeast Asia. And if you were at SEAL Team 3, which is the command right next door, you were in desert camis and going to the Middle East all the time. And very different mission sets and responsibilities for those things. After 9/11, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan required us all to basically do rotations there. So in many ways, the teams lost the regional expertise and we started becoming more like the same capabilities across the board because SEAL Team 5 would replace SEAL Team 3 and SEAL Team 8 would be on deployment. So everyone was interoperable at that point because we were dealing with the same mission set. When you talk about SEAL Team 6, that's a totally different playing field. So you go through BUDS to become a SEAL, and then you get assigned to your first SEAL team. You do a couple deployments there. And if you're good enough, I mean, really good enough, then you can screen to try out to go to SEAL Team 6.
Oh, fuck.
And they don't take everyone that tries out, and they only take the best to try out. And then those that actually get an invitation go through another BUDS-like screening there, and not all of them make it through. And even those that make it through at the very end get screened and selected then into the command. And if you don't get picked up you go back to the regular SEAL teams. And so because of that, then they have the best of the best really within the community, and are given the hardest missions and some of the most, critical missions. They have a very different approval process, very different set of authorities, very different chain of command when it comes to those kind of operations. But every one of them that was there had proven themselves as a legitimate SEAL operator before they even got a chance to try out. And then they had to prove themselves there and outcompete all the other guys that were just as good at them. So, I mean, they're the best.
Gotcha. That provides great clarity, because, and the reason that part where I'm going, when we had our brick and mortar training facility here in Scottsdale, teams would come out for training because we got a Blackhawk base right on the street here, and they'd be doing infill exfil operations out here in Phoenix, and they'd come into the gym, sleeved out, roughy scruffy, and try to be as anonymous as possible. It's like, hey man, game recognized game. Who are you with? Where are you from?
Right. It's a funny thing how guys, the harder they try to not look like an operator, like with the beard, the more they look like an operator, because you can't, like, they're all jacked. They got tats everywhere. Like, if you really don't want to look like an operator, you got to get fat. You got to wear bad clothes. You can't have tats, and you got to have a nasty looking beard like mine,
I was like,
that's the only way you're going to fit in as a civilian.
Right? Yeah. You don't get dust like that on your shoes climbing Camelback Mountain, bro. Those are, like that's a special kind of dirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's okay. You can sign your name Smith. It's fine. It works. Just sign the waiver. Will be good. And I remember one day I was at the desk doing some admin, and the senior chief comes in, and I'm listening to Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins on Audible. And he comes in, he starts doing the waiver, and he's like, "Is that fucker Goggins?" I was like, yeah. It's like, I think it's a pretty good book, man. And, to be honest with you, he's like, "Fuck that guy." And I was like, "Why?" Like, hi, my name's Michael. Good to meet you. And he's like, "Nobody does this shit to get famous. Like all those guys, Jocko and blah, 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 blah," and just like goes left for like 5 minutes. And I was like, "Oh, let me give you the tour," and life goes on. Where are you at with, because there's obviously social media is running crazy right now, like stolen valor and over sensationalizing operations and stuff like that. How, like, where does all that sit with you? Is it worth your time? Does it impact the way you view your service compared to what your memories of these things? Like, where do you sit with the celebrity of your community?
Yeah, I'm a bit conflicted by it overall. I think when I was younger, I was certainly far more judgmental, to people that would do that kind of stuff and pretty absolute on it. I think I've gradually kind of rounded out my edges a little bit, and a couple different reasons. So first and foremost, I don't love it. I don't love the guys talking about what's going on. But at the same time, there is some value that those lessons that have been learned the hard way have been able to help improve other people's lives, businesses, other different things, that kind of brings more value and meaning to the sacrifices that, our brothers have made. So I appreciate that. I think, to me, what it really comes down to is, what's the purpose or the intent behind bringing it up? So when Jocko gets out there and he writes his first book with Leif Babin about extreme ownership, and he's out helping companies, and he's telling stories from combat and translating them into business, lessons learned. I've never read anything or seen anyone more effective in being able to make that translation and communicate it so effectively.
Yeah.
And at no time do I ever feel like, when Jocko and Leif are talking about this, that they're taking personal credit for it. They're sharing a story. They're sharing lessons. I think there's others that jump on kind of the social media, kind of, glamour tour, and it's about them.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as I do that none of us do any of these missions by ourselves. It takes a team, and sometimes the team are the operators, and then there's a team of teams behind them to make sure that those operators can execute.
Absolutely.
And the best guys, when they're communicating kind of, what's going on in the SEAL teams or what it is like to be a SEAL or lessons learned, stuff like that, actually, share that perspective. The ones that have to use their name, what did I do? I have a lot of contempt for those people.
Got you.
But I also don't know what's going on in their lives, why they do it. I don't like it. I don't think the community at large likes it. But, I live in a glass house, and so I have a hard time showing. Now, I will say this: as much as I don't like it, people are reading those books. Young men in high school are seeing those stories and going, "I want to do that."
Yeah.
And I don't know if we've got evidence to prove this, but my guess is we're probably getting candidates into the SEAL training that would have never come our way had they not heard about us or aware of us. And maybe they're better. Maybe they're seeing how hard it is, and maybe they're training more to be more effective when they come in. I don't know if that's the reality or not, but if it is, when I was at the academy, I read all the SEAL books from Vietnam. I couldn't put them down.
Right.
I was like, man, I could not get enough of them. So my guess is the current generation is doing the same thing with our stories. And so I would only say that for me, I try not to judge too hard on it. And but really it comes down to, I think, the intent behind what they're doing.
Sure.
Is it about them, or is it about sharing the stories of the team so other people can be better? I'm on board with that stuff, not on board with the personal stuff.
Yeah. As you're saying that, books that really sing out to me as I was developing as a cadet at the academy and as a young officer in the Marine Corps, The Old Breed, Helmet for My Pillow. And then as I was moving through the basic school, Generation Kill came out on HBO, and it was like, and that my brother is 8 years ahead of me in service.
Okay.
And one of the coolest moments of my career was meritoriously promoting him to Staff Sergeant. Lieutenant Anders promoting Staff Sergeant Anders. It was fucking awesome.
That's awesome.
And, there is when I left active duty, my second career in the Marine Corps Reserve was with Recruiting Command. And it was really interesting, when I would consider your progression into officership to be one of a journeyman, like you kind of, not to dismiss your track, but you came in the back door, so to speak. It wasn't direct. And sitting there in Recruiting Command, I think this is where we're at, where the pendulum is correcting now. There was this period where we were moving kids so far away from like that trade mentality, this aggregate of experience that makes you complete, so to speak. And I'm interviewing these kids that have, perfect scores on their SATs. They're, top 1, 2 in their graduating class, et cetera. And they want, they're quote unquote competitive for an ROTC scholarship or an appointment to a service academy. And it was like, my trump question in the initial interview process was like, give me an instance of adversity that you've overcome that didn't have to do with academics.
Yeah.
And they were so insulated in their lived experience up to this point. It was like, man, I can't in good conscience move you forward. And then all of a sudden, every once in a while you get the 3.2 GPA varsity athlete with a part-time job from a single parent household. And it's like, tell me a story, man. Yep. And it's like, man, like life is hard. but I'm managing it and da 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 da. It's like you are better equipped for what, even though you don't know what you don't know, you are better equipped to handle what's coming than the one trick pony that is intellectually sound but hasn't overcome very much in terms of their lived experience. How congruent is that with your experience on your side in your military experience?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we got to be really careful as a society what we decide to use as metrics for measuring either success, but also for gaining entrance into, institutions or into the job market. I think, it's too simple to use a SAT score, as a measure of academic capability and going into school, because if you're a bad test taker, you're not going to perform well. And if you have a lot of money, your parents are going to send you SAT prep courses. Okay. And if you come from a good school that prepares you well for that test, you're going to do better. I don't believe that's a good measure, that we should be using to be able to get in. And thankfully, a lot of other colleges agree with that and aren't using that as a metric anymore. But what you're talking about is, then how do you measure something that's qualitative?
Intangible.
That's exactly right. And that's a tougher thing. And my experience, what makes a good team guy are the ones that aren't the fastest, aren't the smartest necessarily. Maybe they are, but they're the grittiest, the hardest working. So how do you teach that? And you can learn that skill by being the valedictorian of your class and being the quarterback in the football team. And you can also learn it by being the bottom of your class and having worked 2 jobs because, your dad left when he was 5 years old and now you're taking care of the family. And you can't participate in sports because you don't have time for that. And you can't do all the after-hour club activities. So when you go to fill out your application, you can't get into these places. We got to make sure that we shine a spotlight on those individuals, and then we make sure we bring them up and we go find them. And I think we can't passively sit back and take just who looks good on paper. I think we need to actively go out to our communities and find those places where, young men are being driven and pushed and tested, and we see something special in them, and we're going to lift you up. We're going to bring you to this place. I just went to a ship christening ceremony yesterday for the Lewis Wilson Jr., the new destroyer being built here in Bath, Maine. General Wilson was commandant in the Marine Corps back in the 70s. In fact, under his watch, the proud, the Marines all came, under him. He set new standards. He earned the Medal of Honor as a captain in the Battle of Guam during World War II. The reason I tell this story is this is a kid who grew up where his dad had left before he kind of had grown up. And he basically took care of the family. And the stories they were telling yesterday about who he was, he had a goat cart where he would grow vegetables, and then he would sell them around town and be able to take care of his mom and his family. And then he was able to go off to college, Millsaps College down in Mississippi, I believe it was. And he was always proud that he didn't go to the service academy. He's like, I paid for my education, and it was a damn good one. And he's one of those guys too. He became a general officer, and sometimes we look at our officers and kind of with some disdain, kind of like, what have you done to prove yourself? But there's good ones out there too, like him. And, I think we just need to find more of them, especially when we don't have as big a numbers we need to bring. We don't have to have volume. Then I want those recruiters to be out there looking for, that next Lewis Wilson, whether he becomes an officer or he's an NCO, because that's what's going to make our military strong and our country safe.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I was an air traffic control officer, and I ran UAV operations in Afghanistan, and then obviously did the recruiting thing in the reserves thereafter. And still, the decision-making premise in the Marines is, whether you're scrubbing toilets or giving orders in a combat environment, is still through the prism of life and death. And one of the Huge lessons I had to learn in leadership after leaving the uniform. It's like that's not the premise of decision making out here. And I had to shift my own thinking, check my ego, because I very much struggled in the beginning for a good couple of years as to why shit doesn't move fast enough. I'd given myself this false narrative that my 50% is everybody else's 100, and so on and so forth. What was your transition like from 20 years of active and honorable service to the corporate world? And I want to hear about this hard left that you took after retirement. And what were the mechanisms, if it was any kind of challenging, that you put in place to make that transition smoother?
Yeah, there's a lot to this answer. So for our listeners, quick, kind of sequence of events. Retired from active duty in 2018. We were living in San Diego at the time, just my wife and I. Married 26 years now. She stuck
Congrats.
with me through all the years. Yeah, thank God. We've only been together 13 of them, but like still, yeah,
dude, yeah,
it was busy times there. But so my family lived in Maine. I wanted to be near my mom and dad as they get older. Lost my dad last year. Couldn't be more grateful having the previous 6 years with him. And now, my mom comes over, spends the night. We hang out. We play a lot of cornhole and Catan and games, and I love it. My nephew, my sister, everyone's here. And so when I got out, I moved to Maine. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I had no idea. Well, so I was able to participate in it's called the Commit Foundation. It was a transition service for veterans, and there's tons of them out there, the Honor Foundation and all these other different organizations, but the Commit uniquely approaches transition very differently. And that is, let's not talk about what you're going to do or what you might want to do. Let's figure out what your lifestyle and what you care about is first. And so we spent a ton of time with a coach. And actually, I did my transition when I was in Iraq. So my last tour to Iraq, I wanted one more pump before I retired. So I, like 2 months after I got back from Iraq, I was out of the Navy. So I ran as long as I could with a gun in my pocket. But I needed to do my transition service remotely. And Commit Foundation was the only one that actually did that. So I would meet with my coach who lived in Virginia Beach, and I'm in Iraq once a week, and we would talk through stuff. And it was just her trying to pull, what do you want? Like, what kind of life do you want to pick your kids up at soccer practice? Do you want to work, volunteer at your church? Like, what do you want? Because if you're not careful and you just go looking for a job, you're going to get a job. And then you're going to have this moment like, shit, I don't want to do this. This sucks. Or I can't do all the things that I want to do, and I'm still missing all the basketball games. I got out of the Navy so that I could spend more time with my family. And now I'm rowing hard. Oh, I got 6 figures. That's great. I'm a VP. Awesome. But guess what? The corporate world is going to make sure you earn every cent of that 6-figure salary. So they're pushing kind of hard. And then you realize, so 2 years later, you're going through another transition. And that puts your whole family in turmoil. If you can really figure out really core, like what kind of lifestyle, like what's important to you, what are your passions, what's envision what your best day is and why, envision what your worst day was and why was that, or job, or whatever it is in that kind of rubric. And you can focus in. Well, they did that for me. And I narrowed down, and I was fortunate through networking to meet with the president of Colby College up here in Maine, Division III school. And he said, hey, if you don't know what you're going to do, why don't you do a fellowship here? We could benefit from your experience. My leadership team could do this. And, my dad was a Marine veteran. Let me help you out with the transition. For 6 months, I went to this very liberal arts school in central Maine. And I got to know higher education and kind of the values of it. And before long, I stayed on to do strategy for the college. And then mid-semester, the athletic director moved on to a new assignment. And so they were gapped. And that was just a job you can't gap. With 700 student athletes, games going on all the time. And so the president said, "Hey, Mike, I know you don't know anything about athletics, but I know you know how to run an organization. So I need to get in there." And the culture had some challenges. There were some issues internally, and we were building a $100 million brand new athletic facility, state of the art. Like all that required someone watching over it. So I jumped in, and I did that for the next 5 years. I didn't anticipate how COVID was going to throw a wrench into all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I was asked this question that, many times, man, how do you do this? Like when you were in the SEALs, like you had life and death decisions, like you must be bored. And I reflected on that a couple of times. The way I would answer that now is I would say, I don't see the leadership challenge or the decisions I have to make being a college athletic director any different than the decisions I had to make as a SEAL officer in terms of the consequences. Certainly on target stuff, there were some immediate life or death decisions sometimes, or just how we did things. But honestly, those were very temporary, usually in nature, sometimes big consequences. But if I created an environment in which my coaches developed the wrong type of character and integrity in our student athletes that taught them the wrong way to win, those individuals that were coming out of Colby College, an incredible institution with a great academic reputation and experience, many of which are coming from fairly affluent families as well, we're going to go into the workforce, and they were going to lead large industries and companies and people with a flawed character. And we've seen all kinds of reports around business leaders that have destroyed people's savings, taken advantage of their workers, committed horrible, unethical, and immoral actions that really hurt the people they were responsible for. And so I took that extremely seriously, like as serious as the life and death decisions in Iraq, I took in terms of our mission to develop young men and women of character and be able to enable them to be, good citizens in the world. And so I had a good mission when I got out, and I was well prepared for like what was important to me: being near family, having a steady place that I could live, being involved in my community, having a job that I felt made a difference. And as a result, for the next 6 years, I had a very good azimuth that pointed me to what was important and helped me stabilize, gave me a strong salary that was able to take care of my family, allowed my wife to be able to start her job. She's an interior designer and really kind of flourish in that, which she couldn't do in the Navy because we were moving around so much.
Right.
And so I got lucky, but I spent 2 years before I got out preparing for it too. Like I was I didn't just all of a sudden show up to Maine, and I didn't just one day meet the president of Colby College and he said, "Hey, here's a job." That took months and years in advance to prepare and sow the seeds and do the networking, and then the transition services and relying on other people to help me navigate this process, and then getting into the place and finding kind of my purpose. So in a lot of ways I got super lucky, but even then it wasn't easy at all. The first couple of years I felt like my transition couldn't have gone smoother. And then things started like creeping up a couple of years later. I had a harder transition 4 years out of the Navy than I did 4 months out of the Navy. And the reason for that was because I was finally in a place long enough to really figure out who Mike Wisecup was and not who Commander Wisecup was anymore. And I had to unwrap, and I just didn't know how long it would take or what situation. And so last year, I kind of really started to figure out kind of who I was and a little bit more clarity, kind of what life I wanted to live. And so I made a pivot over to the private sector, and I'm back in the national security game with a defense technology startup company. And I love it. I'm working with teammates, I'm supporting soldiers, with real missions to be able to do their job, feel connected. And I don't work on the weekends, and no one calls me on the phone anymore. I'm not responsible for revenue. I'm not in charge of anyone for the first time in like 15 years. I love it. I have no stress. I'm as good as I could be. And now I'm a lot better husband and certainly a lot better
Dude.
to my family, but it took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I want
transition pathway.
yeah, I want to applaud you for having, at the very least, the awareness to be patient with yourself. Because part of our process at Next Level is putting alignment first, right?
Yeah.
And as we were sunsetting our brick and mortar training facility here in Scottsdale this past summer, I got offered a chief operating officer position at an up and coming franchise out of Austin, Texas. And thank God you said you took 2 years at the tail end of your career to transition into the new season of your life. Thank God that I was doing that work on Michael to identify that the work that really needed to be done, never mind revenue, scale, and all the other, buzzwords of business. It's like I finally got to a point where I'm in the best place I've ever been as a husband and a father. And what we teach our clients now is to identify, much like you've done, what's actually important to you. And we'll build a life, we'll pursue business opportunities, et cetera, that fit around that, as opposed to doing what you just cautioned us against and just diving into the next sexy thing. Yeah. And because I had identified that, when push came to shove, I'll spare you all the boring details, I walked away from that opportunity because it would have compromised where I'm at as a husband and a father. Yep. And people are like, oh my God, dude, like, so what? Now I'm up against the gun, trying to find a new property for the gym, et cetera. And I'm at the same time, amidst all that chaos, I had never slept better. All of a sudden, asthma that I've been dealing with for the longest time just miraculously fucking went away, and it's because I discovered what I had unpacked, to use your word, what alignment looks like for Michael. Yeah. Now everything that we build moving forward supports that highest and best version of me. Yeah. Right. And it gives you like almost a limitless capacity for all the hurdles, obstacles, and unforeseen adversity that comes with whatever the initiative is. In my case, it's restructuring a company, right? So, like, and it all of a sudden, you're just like, to your point, the energy you walk around with is like, man, I am 100. I am so in stride right now. This is amazing. And you probably could have given me the exact opposite description of your situation right now and had the same energy about it, because it was in alignment for Mike Wisecup, not Commander Wisecup. And I love that distinction of identity, because the where I want to lead now is, how long did it take you to identify for yourself that you were living in that commander identity for, a season too long? Or let me back up. How long did it take you to identify that commander identity no longer served you? That's the better question.
Yeah. The probably 6 years. Mm-hmm. I have to put a timeline on.
I was today years old.
Yeah, that's right. I always want Commander Wisecup to be a part of my life. I'm very proud of it. Very proud of it. And there's times that I want to flip that switch on and off. Mm-hmm. But it's not who I am anymore. I realized when I got out of the military, and I knew it was coming, and I wasn't naive to this, and so I was paying attention to it. Mm-hmm. But institutions like the military or anything, even going to college, it's an institution, creates a girdle. It's like a girdle. Yeah. And for those of our young listeners out there, it's this old school thing that women used to wear around their torso, and it was like bones and all that kind of stuff, and it would tight cinch and all that kind of. Well, when you wear a girdle a long time, because it provides artificial now rib support and structure to your torso, and you go take that off, you realize you got no real core strength. You got no muscles underneath there. And so the military was a little bit like that. Like, I got out of the military and I think I got discipline. I know how to get stuff done. I can work hard, all these different things. I realized a lot of what I thought was me was the institution's structure, and that I had to relearn those things. And I think we have a lot of veterans that really are challenged by that. I don't have to wake up. I don't have to take the annual PRT anymore. I don't have to like wear my uniform, so therefore I got to look all right. You know, I don't have all these different things. And now, because you don't have those structures in place, it just kind of slips away. And we actually, I think the institution provides a lot of the discipline and structure, so we don't actually know what our own personal discipline and capabilities are, and we have to replace them somehow. And if you're not careful, you can go down this slippery slope, and then you're a soup sandwich, and you're trying to figure things out. And that's when guys really kind of struggle, I think. And because I mean, some of the best guys, I mean, they were rock stars, they were master chiefs, they were crushing it, and then they're struggling on the outside. Like there's something like, what happened? And so for me, it was, I had to rebuild things that were genuine to me, that I could live with every day, that were authentic, that had nothing to do with my environment, that had nothing to do with the organization I was a part of. And that took a lot of work, because I didn't know I needed it until it was too late. And I was like, man, I've been drinking way too much. I'm not working out. I am going to the hospital for like GI issues, and like, this isn't good. I'm angry, and like, I'm not sleeping well. These were all symptoms of other things. And I had to like backtrack and kind of start, you know, figuring those things out. Some of it was, I realized I just needed a different type of job that wasn't as stressful, that was compounding these things. And so I needed to take that step away. But I said it before, I'm lucky to be able to do that, because I'm professionally fulfilled based off of what I've done. And I am able to make that shift because I am not chasing something anymore. I don't feel like I need to go prove myself or go win a triathlon or go do that next thing. I do enjoy the competition and the challenge and the struggle that comes from that. But that's just like, because that's how I'm built. But I don't need it in my life to prove who I am anymore. And if you're not in that situation where you don't have that sense of professional fulfillment, it's tough. It's even tougher, because you're looking for it and you need it. And but what I've learned is you get to define what that is, and you get to tell yourself what success looks like and what professional fulfillment looks like. And if professional fulfillment for you is $1 million salary, okay, if that's what it is. Now, to get $1 million salary, there's certain things you got to do, and there might be certain sacrifices along the way you got to make. As long as you're okay with that, fine. I'm not okay with that. You know, the sacrifices that would take to go get that CEO job or this thing at this point in my life aren't worth it to me. And I'm okay with that. And I don't fault anyone for wanting that lifestyle or making those sacrifices. That's their business. But for me, where I want to be and what I want to do, I'm trying to find purpose in the littlest things. Where can I have the impact in my community? What can I do? I joined a board for a camp here called Camp Sunshine. They help children with life-threatening illnesses and their families. A lot of these kids won't survive to their 18th birthday. You know, talking about some very serious ailments. And it's here in Maine, and I'm able to help, you know, and bring awareness to it and raise money for it and help these families kind of get through this tough time in life. And that's good. Like, I like that. That's success to me. If my church asked me to go, you know, stack wood, I'll go stack wood. That's success to me. That makes me feel good. I've helped out my neighbor in some way, shape, or form. And so you have to redefine it. And then once I did, build those skills, build that discipline, figure out who I am, what's important to me, what success looks like. That's when I knew I was starting to learn who Mike Wisecup was. And I wasn't looking for rank, the next position, the next job, where I need to be, the next salary, that were all artificial things, all things outside of me, all things that were part of an institution, a process that I was running and climbing and stuff like that, which served a purpose for me at that point in my life, but it's not where I am anymore. It's not who I want to be anymore.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, time is a major component, a very, very critical through line in everything that you talked about just now. Was there a moment like where the light bulb went on that was like, ooh, a significant shift needs to occur?
There was a combination of events, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments where I was sitting in my office as the athletic director, and this happened fairly frequently,
Mm-hmm.
where I was talking to a upset parent about playing time or something along those lines. Okay. It happens a ton. It's an area that I was not ready for. I'm taking deep breaths already. Like I'm already feeling my blood pressure rise just thinking about it. And I could spend another hour talking about how incensed I am by this. But I mean, there was never a time in Iraq or Afghanistan that I was getting a phone call from a parent or an email about how uncomfortable the Humvee was or how nasty the MREs that we were eating. Like, it didn't happen.
Right.
Okay. And so I was not prepared for that. And I was like, what is this? And how are these parents like adversely affecting their children's development by being involved like this? This is just, do they realize the damage they're doing by trying to be protective? And like that just drew on me. Having to let go people that I became friends with for, whether it was firing them for professional reasons or other objectives. I don't like that. I really like getting to know my people and being friends with them, trying to help them out. And I really hate having to part ways with people whose that's their livelihood and know that they have a family and kids that I've gotten to know, and now they're going to have to be challenged. I didn't like that part. It wasn't the same in the military. If you got rid of someone, they still had a job in the military. They just moved to a different job in the military. So this is different and affected me differently. My dad died, and I was thinking to myself, man, I could have spent a lot more time watching Navy football games with him than I did. Why didn't I? I just lived down the road. Oh, because I was up at my own football games for the team, or I was busy and exhausted. I was so damn tired at the end of the day that I just couldn't make the effort to go down there. And then my wife said something to the effect of, man, I saw you more when you were in the Navy than I do now, when I was getting home at 9:00 every night and then working on Saturdays and Sundays. And I was like, this is not good. And I saw it in me. I saw things that I didn't like in me. And I was
aren't wives good at that?
They're the best. They're the best. I mean, honestly, like, man, they know us better than we know ourselves. Man. And, oh my God, best decision I've ever made.
We could have another hour-and-a-half conversation about outkicking our coverage, man. Like, seriously, it sounds like your wife is operating on the same frequency as mine, brother. Cow. I feel that. Yeah.
Unsung heroes for sure. And so it was those combination of things. And I was like, I need to make it. I need to make a change. And, man, it took me 6 months still unwrapping from that stress in the new job. But I'm in a better place now than I ever have been. And I'm starting to be involved in activities and helping out Camp Sunshine more than I could, and helping out with the church and helping out with my neighbors in ways that I couldn't before. Or, after this gets done, going out and play cornhole with my mom. And she's 80 something years later, 84 years old, I think. And she still kicks my ass. So it's great.
Dude, I feel you on that, man. As soon as we hang up here, man, I'm heading up to see my son get his belt promotion in jiu-jitsu. So awesome. I appreciate the flexibility to make that happen, right? But that's exactly what we're talking about, right? What does your perfect day look like? And you identifying that doesn't necessarily mean that you get to step into that tomorrow. There's work to be done, much as you've alluded to throughout this conversation. And yet, if you don't know what that looks like or what you desire for that to look like, you're pissing in the wind, trying not to get wet. And so I I'm so happy that we were able to have this conversation and bring it to our audience. Because whether you're a transitioning athlete or a transitioning veteran, or you're just in a place in your life that you know is less than desirable, like everything that you talked about today applies to all three of those scenarios. But it starts with creating the space. And I think this is the most important part, because I know for sure in the clients we serve, this is the part they struggle with the most, is creating the space up front to sit still long enough and move through that introspective process and identify what the fuck it is that you want for you, so that you can start building that scaffolding that supports your greatness.
Yeah.
And you've done that. And we are friends now. Never mind the fact that we're both veterans and athletes, and the post brought us together. Thankful to Christian Ponder for creating an organization, a container that allows these relationships to flourish. But yeah, man, you are an example of everything that we preach at Next Level, man. And I'm grateful to know you. And any way that we can support you, create a platform to create a microphone for how you serve, we are here for it, brother. Where can everybody listening find Mike Wisecup and glean knowledge from you about that transitional process, dude?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in pay it forward, and certainly enough people took care of me and mentored me along the way. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, Michael Wisecup, and if you want to chat, I'll give you all the time in the world to talk through things, answer questions, tell stories, whatever it takes to help you through your transition. But yeah, the only rule is that if I help you, you better turn around and help someone else. So it's a nice link in the chain.
There you go. There you go. I'm grateful for you, brother. For everybody out there listening, remember, if you want to become the fittest leader, it requires alignment first and progress always. And if you need support in that endeavor, that's why we created the Alignment Village. So head over to nextlevelpfc.com and join us so that we can help you create that scaffolding to support your greatness. Until next time, alignment first and progress always.